Welcome everybody to week 13. So this week we're going to focus on marketing and growth marketing. You may be wondering why the last chapter of the book is actually about marketing. Isn't the whole point to have a go-to-market strategy? Well, the reason is because unless you go through the rest of the steps, do you have problem solution fit? Do you know your customers? Can you build the solution? What's that MVP? What are the legal issues that might impact you? Until you go through that process and actually discover if you have a viable product in the marketplace, it makes no sense to actually develop a marketing campaign. So I wanted to add this photo because I thought it was actually pretty cute. But remember back to talking about discoverability. Technology should be easily discoverable, and the analogy the book gives about the doors. Well, I was in a bathroom here at UAB last week, and these were the design of the doors. Talk about crazy, that you can't even pull. Why put a handle on it? So when we talk about marketing, that what we're really focusing on, step one, is knowing your customer really, really well. And step two, knowing why your customer buys from you. Why are you important to that customer? Why do you have that affiliation? And then the marketing box is this customer relationships box. This is really the marketing box. So all of the things that you guys learn about this week in terms of brand, advertising, persuasion, these are all concepts that go into your marketing box. This box is all about how are you going to get your customers, how are you going to keep them, how you're going to grow them. So the first step is to really be thoughtful about how you want to build your brand. There is tremendous value in brands. First, it signals trust to your customers. So if you have a branded product where you are a well-known entity, customers will pay a premium because they trust your company. It also helps to build customer loyalty where they keep coming back. It ensures that it drives corporate responsibility. So because you have a brand that your company is very interested in keeping and maintaining that trust and loyalty and identification with those customers, it will behave responsibly. But here's the thing about brands, that it has to be highly distinctive. If it's not distinctive, you will not be able to protect that brand. So one of the most famous cases is aspirin. Aspirin is actually a trademarked brand name for acetaminophen. However, because everybody just started calling it aspirin, that it lost its distinctiveness. You also don't want a brand that describes what your product is or what your product does. You won't be able to protect that. Best Buy, kind of on the edge because we have your Best Buy. So that's going to be really hard to protect because it's pretty generic. So what you're going for in terms of building a strong brand identity is something that could be suggestive or representative of something else. Here you have Jaguar. So Jaguar is clearly not a car, but it is suggestive of sleek and fast and cool. You could have something like an emblem, like an apple. So makes no sense whatsoever. The computer company with a fruit. It is a connection that is completely arbitrary. Or it could be something fanciful, like Adidas, something you completely make up. So in terms of other types of brand, we have Google, we have Yahoo, just, things that are completely made up for the purpose of creating your brand. The more it's distinctive, the easier it will be for you to protect. And keep in mind, the brand can be artistic, it can be words, it can be colors, it can also be sound. Harley-Davidson has actually trademarked that, that Harley-Davidson sound that you associate with those motorcycles. It could be a shape. Hershey Kisses have actually trademarked that shape of what is a Hershey Kiss. So other candy companies cannot replicate that shape. It could be a smell. It could be the use of Mac before another word like chicken McNuggets. So those are all trademark distinctive qualities that distinguish your brand from other competitors. Brands can be legally protected. With a brand, you have to register your brand with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. The nice thing about brands in terms of intellectual property is they do not expire. Copyrights will expire after 70 years. Patents typically expire after 20 years. With a trademark, it is indefinite. They don't expire as long as you keep it registered and active with the USPTO. Some things to consider, though, is the only way to protect the trademark from being infringed is for the actual owner of the trademark to defend it. So the owner has to go out and defend the trademark by suing people that infringe or come too close in a way that encroaches upon that brand's distinctiveness. Another thing to consider, if your brand becomes too popular and becomes what we call generic or genericized, then it's not protectable anymore. So some very famous brands that started off as trademarked, think of things like Band-Aid, bubble wrap, chapstick, zippers, jet ski, Xerox. These brands became just part of the way people in the United States spoke about things. So a jet ski is the motorized vehicle that we take out on the waves. It's essentially just become a word that is popularly used by all people. Chapstick, it's just something we stick on our lips when it's cold. So if your brand becomes too popular and too commonly used amongst the population, you won't be able to protect it anymore. The good news is that everybody now is talking about your brand and using it to describe something. Xerox basically is how we talk about making a copy of paper. Of course, recently in the news, one of the most famous brand missteps was perpetrated by Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel got this great idea. It wanted to upgrade its brand, its look and feel, what it meant to their consumers, their customers. They wanted to get it at, modernize it. What they did is they took this old country store look and feel and made it more modern, made it more approachable, and the backlash was immediate and totally intense. So for Cracker Barrel customers, what the brand meant to them was vintage Americana. And Cracker Barrel was trying to steal that identity away from the customers. But get this, talk about really not a good move. That when they looked, they didn't test this with their customers. They didn't do any user testing before they made the decision to do this. They had also planned to do a complete remodel of their restaurants to bring it up to this more modern look. But get this, they even admit they only did user testing in 4 restaurants before the plan to roll it out to 600 locations to get that feedback. Boy, did they have to backstep really, really quickly. So, essential, understand what your brand means to the customers and be very, very careful if you want to start messing around or changing that meaning, because your customers could quit you. So when it comes to building a brand for your product, the first thing you need to do is figure out your brand's positioning. How do you want your users to think about your product? Is it fun? Is it cool? Is it vintage Americana? That is something that you need to define in order to build that brand. How do your customers think about it now when you take out your MVP? Do they think it's cool? Do they think it's traditional? You get to decide exactly how you want to position your brand. And that positioning needs to directly link to that customer segment that you are trying to reach. The second step in building your brand is to go through the brand pyramid. So with the brand pyramid, you have your basic functional attributes of your brand, but also the emotional attributes of your brand. So it starts here on the bottom with the features. So here's an example of the pyramid using Tesla. So down here on the bottom, the features of a Tesla. You have things like autopilot, you have smart summons, you have super fast 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds. You have over-the-air updates to be able to update the software. So these are features of the product. Building upon the features are the functional benefits. So what do these features actually provide in terms of functionality for the users? You have things like high performance, smooth, high range, always improving. From there, think about what are the emotional benefits. Why would a customer care about these functional benefits? Well, things like exclusivity. We're part of a class or a community. It shows boldness, it shows loyalty, it shows innovation. So the emotional connections that people have to their cars. Then you can think about it in terms of what is the personality of your product. So when you own a Tesla, it's like you're Tony Stark and you're able to do these crazy, innovative, high-tech Iron Man kinds of things. Which gets finally to the top of the pyramid, which is your essence. And so the essence is really, thinking about creating a revolution through sustainable technologies. Interesting thing about Tesla, though, is the brand of Tesla is so intricately connected to the brand of Elon Musk. When you think about it, for a lot of companies, think of your favorite brands. Do you even know who the CEO is? No. So, another thing to consider when it's the same brand between the product and the CEO, that has direct implications for the behaviors of both. So once you've decided how you're going to position your product and build your brand, the next thing to think about is how you're going to make your customers aware of you. So this is a very helpful chart that gets you thinking about, well, how large is my customer base and how much revenue can I earn? In trying to get to $100 million in revenue every single year, there are lots of ways to do this. You can have 10,000 customers that are paying $10, or you can have, a handful of customers that are paying $100,000. So you get to decide what it is, what types of customers are you trying to reach, and, how much is that going to cost you? This is directly connected to your CAC, your customer acquisition cost, as well as the lifetime value of that customer. So if you're going after flies, lots of people that are paying a little bit of money, then you cannot afford to do a lot of advertising. You cannot afford to have a supermarket or a Super Bowl commercial. So the idea here is you want to bring in customers for free. You want to make it easy for them to find you, to sign up, to try, and then convert over. So moving up in terms of the revenue potential, the next step is our mice. Once again, you don't have a lot of money to spend on advertising, and so what you do is you try and get your existing customers to help do sales for you. So you can do things like referral bonus. If you sign up a friend, we'll give you 80,000 points. And then from there, you go up to rabbits, and it's kind of in the middle. So you're making pretty good revenue off of your customers, but it's really not enough to have a direct sales channel yet. Inbound marketing. How can you get your existing users to help promote your products for free? Then, of course, you come up to deer. This is where you need to invest in a sales team. So moving from advertising to actual direct sales. You may not have enough revenue coming in to have a dedicated sales team, but you would have somebody that's remotely available on call to help with training and debugging and any other types of customer service issues. And of course, if you have a few customers that are paying a lot of money, they're going to expect a dedicated sales team, Christmas gifts during the holidays, schmoozing at the company picnic or golf outings, but you're going to need a dedicated sales team, and you're going to have a really high customer acquisition cost, also customer support. So the reason this is important is think through, what is your customer base going to look like? How much can you charge? And then how much can you spend on advertising and sales? All part of that marketing campaign. Which raises the question, well, what is the difference between marketing and advertising? We have a tendency to talk about like these are the same things. They're very, very distinct. Marketing is your go-to-market strategy. It's everything about understanding, designing, positioning, and delivering value to the customer. Advertising, on the other hand, is just one of the tactics you use in your marketing campaign, in your go-to-market strategy. Advertising is using communication and persuasive messaging to either build awareness and connection to the product or your brand. So with a marketing campaign, you are thinking about things like, who is the product for? What problem does it solve? Why is it better for our customers? And how do we deliver and communicate that value? Advertising, on the other hand, it's about paid communication channels, advertising, so paying for the channel to that customer. It's designed to attract attention and drive awareness or action. And it's delivered through channels like social media ads, display ads, billboards, search ads, commercials, or even influencer sponsorships. So what kind of ads do you want to use and where? That really comes down to this model of the purchase funnel. So remember in that marketing box, the customer relationship box, we talk about how do you get your customers. So that is this purchase funnel. How do your customers become aware of you, familiar with you? How do they start considering to purchase from you? How do you convert them into an actual purchase? Then how do you keep them loyal? And how do you turn them into advocates for your product? So depending on where you are in this purchase funnel, then it makes more or less sense to do direct response advertising versus brand advertising. For instance, if you're trying to build awareness and familiarity, you want brand ads. You want people just to become aware that you even exist, that you have a brand. So you're thinking, it's something fun, something exciting, something that people, it would catch their eye when they're browsing on social media. But this is really, building an impression about your brand so people are aware that your brand exists. And usually this will be through low intent activities. So when they're browsing social media, and with brand ads, you typically pay for eyeballs. So click per meal. How many impressions are you making on people? As your customers are moving into consideration and moving into conversion or actual purchase, this is where you want to place your direct response ads. These are the ads that have a direct call to action. Things like call now, click here. So for instance, this is the kind of ad that you would place on Amazon, where people are looking at your product or a similar product and you want them to buy now. So you would use direct response ads through high interest activities. People already know about your product, they're already looking at you. And for these types of ads, typically you will pay for click-through rates. So how many people see the ad and actually respond to that call to action. And then, of course, out here, once you have loyalty and advocacy amongst your customers, this is where you get earned advertising. It costs you nothing. This is where the relationship that you have with your customers and that customers have with your product, how it makes them feel, that emotional connection, that's where it really can pay in real world value for your company. So with earned ads, these are things like customer reviews. They say they love it. Mentions on social media, talking word of mouth. So it was cute. My battery died last week. Remember, it got really cold? Well, I knew it was on the fritz, but I thought I could keep eking it out, and unfortunately, I could not. So I took it down to my favorite auto parts store that says they install batteries for free if you buy from them. Sure enough, they actually went above and beyond. So I have one of those horrible cars that has an auxiliary battery for that start-stop button and a primary battery. Everything is under the air filter, so they had to put a little bit of work into it. However, when I thanked them and said, oh, they need to post this on Instagram that they can do this really tough job, he goes, no, here, if you want to help us. He actually had a little plastic sign with a QR code where, I took a picture of the QR code, immediately could leave them a review on Google. So absolutely, I did that for them. Once again, they went well above and beyond. One thing to think about is, kind of this area between a customer, a potential customer is familiar with your brand, but abandoned you somewhere down this funnel and didn't actually make it all the way down to purchase. So these are people you don't want to forget. We have a tendency to think we're just going to stuff the front end of the funnel with new people. However, it is also a very good strategy to turn the people who already know about you into paid customers. So when you think about it, 95% of people will actually leak out of this funnel. So that's a lot of money you're spending on advertising and creating awareness, but not actually getting through to complete conversion. In this case, what you want to do is retarget those people. So retargeting is when you use a cookie from web browsing activities, or let's say when somebody abandoned a cart, that is retargeting. Remarketing is when you do your campaign via email. So let's say a user had signed up for an account, but they haven't actually purchased anything, or maybe it's been a few months. You will send them an email with maybe, an ad of things that they had looked at in the past, and potentially a promotion like get 50% off of your first article purchased. That is, trying to convert people that are somewhere in the middle between this familiarity consideration but actual purchase. So remarketing and retargeting. Growth hacking is a specialized area of marketing that really does some interesting things. They love to run little mini experiments, see what the data shows, and then determine whether or not it should be rolled out more broadly, especially when you have interactions with your customers through digital channels. It's very cheap, fast, and easy to run some of these little growth hack experiments. So, for instance, the book talks about the case with Hotmail. All they did is when someone signed up for a Hotmail account, automatically at the bottom of every single email sent was a message saying, P.S. I love you, sign up for Hotmail. And this idea, they weren't sure if it was going to work, so they only ran it for, a certain period of time. And what they saw is it grew their user base exponentially. So turning your existing customers into advocates of your product and closing this loop back from advocacy to awareness. LinkedIn did this with, would you like to just send invitations to your current contacts? Share your contact list with us. YouTube was very good about doing this by making it super easy for anybody to embed a video across social media, even across PowerPoint. One of the reasons I love using YouTube videos in class is because they make it so easy to just embed the YouTube directly into the PowerPoint. So now what I do with the YouTube video is I expose all of my students to YouTube, and if they click on the link and go to YouTube directly, it gives YouTube an opportunity to show them additional videos. And with growth hacking, it doesn't just have to be turning your existing customers into advocates to try and bring in new customers. You can do growth hacking anywhere along this purchase funnel. For instance, Amazon wanted to make it easier for people who knew they wanted to buy something to just purchase now. That capability is actually patented by Amazon. The buy now click. But think about it, all of the different steps you traditionally have to go through to get from through an online shopping cart. So you have to put an item in your cart, you have to go to checkout, you have to verify the shipping, you have to verify your payment. Finally, you get to actually click the button buy now. There's a lot of ways people can drop out of the funnel just during that checkout process. So think about ways, how can you make it simpler, easier to get through this purchase funnel and turn people who are interested in your products into actual purchasers. But this is a really fun area of product management. I bet if you think about the organization that you work in now and what that customer experience is like, how they purchase from you, how they get things from you, that there are a lot of different ways you can improve that. So are there different, mini experiments that you can run, collect some data to try and simplify, speed up, and remove some of the friction in that process, which is really going to drive your revenues. And the easier you make it, the more your customers will love you. And this brings us to the final chapter in the book, that how would you craft your advertising messages to make them persuasive? So the book talks about Cialdini's model of persuasion. It's a really, really good model to think about when you think about how you're going to position your messaging in your advertising. So there are some things that seem to work really, really well, characteristics of ads, and drive customer purchase behavior. So the first one is this idea of reciprocity. If you give somebody a gift, then by human nature, they want to give something in return, or return the favor. So an example of this is, giving free samples away at Costco. You go around, you get something for free, you feel obligated to reciprocate, and so you purchase a product. The second way is social proof. And so, we are social beings. If other people are doing it, it must be a great thing to do. It must be super cool. So with this, you may want to promote, look how many active users we have, or, this is how many people have purchased the product, or people like you like this. So taking advantage of social proof. We are popular. Another characteristic is liking. So is your advertisement, is it likable? Does it build this sense of people like me? So Airbnb does this by providing profiles of the people who post their homes or their properties on Airbnb to make them more personable, to make them more likable. The fourth one is consistency. So we have a desire to behave consistently over time. This is why if you can get somebody to sign up for free, we have a tendency to just continue with prior behavior, and it makes it easier for people to stay and just continue. So this idea of consistency. Fifth one is authority. So if an authority figure says it's something that is good to do or a good product, people are more likely to believe it. Stunningly, all you need is an actor in a white coat with a stethoscope to make viewers feel like that is a person of authority. So with authority, you would use messaging like 4 out of 5 dentists or top astronauts or, some other type of person of authority that would appeal to your customer segment. Maybe it's an athlete, maybe, it's a sports figure, but, getting them to, or just even saying 4 out of 5 top athletes use our hydration drink. And then the last one is scarcity. And this one is very, very effective. Notice when you go to Southwest and you're getting ready to purchase a ticket, it will say only 2 seats left. So it's this idea, if it's the more scarce it is, the greater sense of urgency I feel to purchase it. This is so powerful that we even have a term for it, FOMO, fear of missing out. All right, so that's it for this week's lecture. I'll see you guys online, and hopefully this week's readings and lectures have given you some ideas about how you would build the brand around your product ideas.